Manchester United and Paul Pogba, the controversial reunion that could reshape Old Trafford. Good evening, and welcome to this special report on one of the most talked about stories in football right now. Tonight, we examine a rumor that has sent shockwaves through the Manchester United fan base and divided opinion across the football world. Could Paul Pogba, one of the most polarizing figures in recent United history, be returning to Old Trafford? Under new manager Ruben Amorim, Manchester United are entering a critical phase of their rebuild. And according to emerging reports, the Portuguese coach may be considering a move that few saw coming, bringing Paul Pogba back into the fold. This isn't just about a former player returning home. This is about a club at a crossroads, a manager with a bold vision, and a player whose talent has never been in question, but whose fit at Manchester United certainly has been. There's no official confirmation yet, no press conference, no announcement from the club. But the fact that this discussion is happening at all tells us something important about where Manchester United are right now. Over the next 50 minutes, we're going to dive deep into this story. We'll examine why Manchester United are struggling, what Ruben Amorim brings to the table, why Paul Pogba's name has resurfaced, and whether this controversial reunion could actually work. We'll look at the tactical reasoning, the financial implications, the fan reactions, and the historical context that makes this potential move so complicated. So settle in, because this is a story that goes far beyond a simple transfer rumor. This is about identity, ambition, and the difficult choices facing one of football's biggest clubs. The state of Manchester United. To understand why Paul Pogba's name is even being mentioned, we first need to understand the problems at Manchester United. This season, once again, has exposed the same familiar weaknesses that have plagued the club for years. And despite changes in management, tactics, and personnel, certain issues keep resurfacing. Let's start with the midfield, the engine room of any successful team. Manchester United's midfield has consistently failed to control games this season. Whether facing top six opposition or mid-table teams, United struggle to dictate tempo, maintain possession under pressure, and transition smoothly between defense and attack. Watch any United match this season, and you'll see the pattern. The midfield gets bypassed too easily. Opponents play through United's center with concerning regularity. And when United have the ball, there's often a lack of composure and creativity in the middle third. This isn't just about individual players. It's about structure. It's about balance. It's about having a midfield unit that functions as a cohesive whole rather than a collection of individuals. The second major issue is consistency. Manchester United can beat Manchester City one week, then lose to a struggling side the next. They can dominate possession for an hour, then collapse in the final 20 minutes. They can create chances in bunches, then go through entire matches looking toothless. This inconsistency reflects a deeper problem. The team lacks a clear identity. Under previous managers, United have tried various approaches. High pressing, counterattacking, possession-based football. But none of these styles have been fully implemented or consistently executed. Players seem unsure of their roles. Tactical plans change from match to match. And the result is a team that looks uncertain, hesitant, and fragile under pressure. The third problem is leadership. On the pitch, when games get difficult, Manchester United too often lack the experienced voices and personalities who can steady the ship, who can organize the defense when under siege, who can demand the ball in midfield when momentum shifts against United, who can calm nerves and make smart decisions in critical moments. These aren't just individual skill issues. These are leadership qualities that come from experience, personality, and understanding the weight of the Manchester United shirt. The combination of these problems, midfield weakness, inconsistency, and lack of leadership, has resulted in another frustrating season. Drop points against beatable opponents, early exits from cup competitions, a growing disconnect between the team's performances and the expectations of the fan base. And perhaps most concerning of all, there's a sense that despite spending enormous amounts of money on new players, the core problems remain unsolved. That's the context in which Ruben Amorim arrives. That's the challenge he faces. And that's why his approach to rebuilding this squad will be so closely scrutinized. Because make no mistake, Manchester United need more than just new players. They need a new identity, a new structure, a new way of thinking about how this team should function. And that brings us to the man tasked with delivering that transformation. Who is Ruben Amorim? For those unfamiliar with Ruben Amorim, let me take a few minutes to explain why his appointment has generated so much excitement, and why his approach to management makes this Paul Pogba story particularly interesting. Ruben Amorim is not a household name in the way that some managers are. He doesn't have the trophy cabinet of Pep Guardiola or the global recognition of Carlo Ancelotti. But what he does have is a clear philosophy, a proven track record, and a reputation as one of Europe's most promising young coaches. Amorim made his name at Sporting CP, the Portuguese giants based in Lisbon. When he took over in 2020, Sporting were in crisis. They hadn't won the league title in nearly 2 decades. The club was fractured, directionless, and struggling to compete with Benfica and Porto. What Amorim did next was remarkable. In his first full season, he led Sporting to their first league title in 19 years. He did it with a clear tactical system, exceptional organization, and by creating a team culture built on discipline and collective effort. But here's what's important for Manchester United fans to understand. Amorim didn't do it by simply buying the best players. He did it by implementing a system that maximized what his players could do. Amorim's tactical approach is built on several key principles. First, structural clarity. Every player knows exactly what their role is. There's no ambiguity, no confusion. Whether you're a defender, midfielder, or forward, you understand your responsibilities both in and out of possession. Second, defensive organization. Amorim's teams are notoriously difficult to break down. They defend as a unit, maintain their shape under pressure, and rarely give opponents easy opportunities. Third, balanced attacking play. While Amorim's teams are solid defensively, they're not boring. They create chances through patient build-up, quick transitions, and exploiting spaces intelligently. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, Amorim prioritizes the system over individual talent. This is crucial. In modern football, many managers try to accommodate their best players, often at the expense of team balance. They change systems to fit star names, even if it creates tactical problems elsewhere. Amorim doesn't do this. He identifies the system that works best for the team, and then selects players who can execute that system. If a talented player doesn't fit, they don't play, regardless of their reputation or transfer fee. Approach has produced remarkable results at Sporting. Players who struggled at other clubs have thrived under Amorim's guidance. Young prospects have developed rapidly, and the team has consistently performed above the sum of its parts. So why is this relevant to Paul Pogba? Because it suggests that Amorim might view Pogba differently than previous Manchester United managers did. Where others saw Pogba as a player who needed to be accommodated, who needed the team built around him, Amorim might see a talented midfielder who simply needs a clearly defined role within a structured system. Where others struggled to find the right tactical setup for Pogba, Amorim might have a plan that allows Pogba to contribute without exposing his weaknesses. This is speculative, of course, but it's consistent with everything we know about Amorim's coaching philosophy. He's not sentimental. He's not swayed by reputations. He's practical, analytical, and focused on what works. And if he believes Paul Pogba can contribute to Manchester United's rebuild within his system, he won't be deterred by the player's complicated history at the club. That's the kind of manager Ruben Amorim is. Confident, clear-minded, and willing to make decisions that others might shy away from. Which brings us to the central question. Why is Paul Pogba's name even being discussed? Paul Pogba's Manchester United legacy. To understand this potential reunion, we need to look back at Paul Pogba's first stint at Manchester United, a period that was simultaneously brilliant and frustrating, record-breaking and disappointing. Paul Pogba's story with Manchester United actually begins in the club's academy. He joined as a teenager, developed through the youth system, and seemed destined for greatness at Old Trafford. But in 2012, Pogba left for Juventus on a free transfer. It was a controversial departure, with Sir Alex Ferguson reportedly frustrated by the player's demands and attitude. At Juventus, Pogba blossomed. He became one of the most exciting young midfielders in world football. He won Serie A titles. He established himself in the French national team. And he developed into exactly the kind of complete midfielder that Manchester United desperately needed. So in 2016, Manchester United brought him back. They paid a then world record transfer fee of £89 million. It was a statement signing, Manchester United reclaiming one of their own and signaling their ambition to compete at the highest level. What followed was 6 years of complexity. There were moments of absolute brilliance. Long-range goals that lit up Old Trafford. Defense-splitting passes that created chances from nothing. Performances where Pogba dominated matches through sheer technical quality. In the 2018-19 season alone, Pogba scored 16 goals and provided 11 assists across all competitions. Those are exceptional numbers for a midfielder. And in 2018, Pogba was instrumental in France's World Cup victory, proving he could perform on the biggest stage when given the right platform. But there were also prolonged periods of frustration. Injuries disrupted his rhythm. He missed significant portions of multiple seasons, which made it difficult to build consistency and momentum. Tactical confusion didn't help. Under different managers, Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ralf Rangnick, Erik ten Hag, Pogba was asked to play different roles in different systems. Sometimes as a deep-lying playmaker, sometimes as an attacking midfielder, sometimes in a midfield two, sometimes in a three. This lack of positional stability made it nearly impossible for Pogba to develop the kind of consistency that defines elite midfielders. There were also questions about his defensive work rate and positional discipline. Critics argued that Pogba's attacking talents came at a defensive cost, that his tendency to roam forward left Manchester United exposed in transition. And there was the drama. Contract speculation, tensions with managers, public criticism, media scrutiny. At times, it felt like Pogba's off-field situation became more prominent than his on-field contributions. By 2022, when his contract expired, the relationship had run its course. Pogba left Manchester United for Juventus on a free transfer, history repeating itself in a strange, circular way. So that's the legacy. Immense talent, undeniable quality, moments of world-class performance, but also inconsistency, injury problems, and a sense that it never quite worked the way anyone hoped. Now, here's the crucial question. Was that Paul Pogba's fault, or was it Manchester United's? Many observers now believe that Pogba's struggles at United weren't entirely down to the player. They were also a result of the environment he was in. Manchester United during Pogba's tenure were a club in transition. Multiple managers with different philosophies. Constant tactical changes. No clear identity or playing style. A squad that was never quite balanced properly. In such an environment, even talented players struggle. And for a player like Pogba, whose game requires structure, support, and clarity of role, the chaos at Manchester United was particularly damaging. This is where Ruben Amorim's perspective might differ. Amorim might look at Pogba's time at United and conclude that the player was set up to fail, that he was asked to do too much, that he was played in systems that didn't suit his strengths, that he never had the kind of stable, organized midfield around him that would allow his talents to flourish. And crucially, Amorim might believe that in a different context, with clear tactical instructions, defined responsibilities, and proper support, Paul Pogba could still be a valuable asset. That's not to say Pogba was blameless during his time at United, but it's to acknowledge that context matters, and that a player's success or failure is often determined by the system around them, not just their individual qualities. Which leads us to the big question: how might Pogba fit into Ruben Amorim's Manchester United? How Pogba could fit in Amorim's system? If Paul Pogba were to return to Manchester United under Ruben Amorim, it would be fundamentally different from his previous spell at the club. This wouldn't be about making Pogba the star. It wouldn't be about building the team around him. It wouldn't be about asking him to carry the creative burden for the entire squad. Instead, Pogba would be one piece in a larger puzzle, a specific tool for specific situations within a well-defined tactical framework. Let me explain what that might look like. First, Pogba's role would be clearly defined from day one. Under Amorim's system, Pogba wouldn't be asked to do everything. He wouldn't be expected to defend like a holding midfielder, create like a number 10, and score like a striker all at the same time. Instead, he might be deployed as a left-sided midfielder in Amorim's preferred 3-4-3 formation. In this role, Pogba would have license to progress the ball forward, link defense and attack, and create chances, but within clear positional boundaries. He wouldn't be asked to track back and defend constantly. That responsibility would be shared across the team through collective pressing and organized defensive shape. This is similar to how Pogba functioned in the French national team under Didier Deschamps. In that setup, Pogba had N'Golo Kante alongside him providing defensive cover, which allowed Pogba to focus on what he does best, controlling tempo, playing progressive passes, and driving forward with the ball. Amorim could replicate this structure by pairing Pogba with a more defensive-minded midfielder who handles the bulk of the ball-winning responsibilities. Second, Pogba's minutes would be carefully managed. Given his injury history, it would be unwise to rely on Pogba as a week-in, week-out starter. Instead, Amorim might use him strategically, bringing him into the team for specific matches where his qualities are most needed. Against deep defending opponents, for example, Pogba's passing range and ability to unlock tight defenses could be invaluable. Against high-pressing teams, his composure under pressure and ability to carry the ball through lines could help United break out of their own half. This rotation approach would keep Pogba fresh, reduce injury risk, and ensure he's at his sharpest when called upon. Third, Pogba would bring something Manchester United desperately need: experience. At this stage of his career, Pogba has played at the highest level for over a decade. He's won World Cups, Serie A titles, and domestic cups. He's played in Champions League knockout rounds and major international tournaments. That experience is valuable, particularly for a young Manchester United squad that often looks lost in big moments. Pogba wouldn't need to be captain or even a regular starter to provide leadership. Simply having his presence in the dressing room, his voice during training, his calmness during difficult matches, these intangible qualities can make a significant difference. Fourth, and this is crucial, Pogba would be playing in a structured system. Everything we know about Amorim suggests that his teams are exceptionally well organized. Players know their roles. Defensive shape is maintained. Transitions are coordinated. In such a system, Pogba's weaknesses, his tendency to lose concentration defensively, his positional wandering, would be mitigated by the collective organization around him. Think of it like this. A talented midfielder in a chaotic, unstructured team will be exposed. But that same midfielder in a well-drilled, organized team can thrive because his individual responsibilities are clearly defined and his teammates cover for any gaps. This is how France used Pogba so effectively. This is how Juventus got the best out of him. And this could be how Amorim gets value from him at Manchester United. Now, I can already hear the objections. Some of you are thinking, but Pogba had plenty of chances at United and it didn't work. Why would this time be different? That's a fair question. And the answer is, it might not be different. This is absolutely a risk. But the argument in favor is that Pogba was never given the kind of tactical clarity and structural support that Amorim would provide. He was asked to be Manchester United's savior, their creative engine, their box-to-box dynamo all at once. Under Amorim, the expectations would be more modest and more realistic. Contribute when called upon. Play your role within the system. Use your experience to help younger players develop. That's a very different proposition from what Pogba faced before. And it's worth noting that some of football's most successful late career moves have come when talented players accept reduced roles in well-organized systems. Think of how Zlatan Ibrahimovic contributed at AC Milan. How Luka Modric continues to be valuable for Real Madrid. How experienced players can still add value when used intelligently. Could Pogba do something similar at Manchester United? Under Ruben Amorim, maybe, just maybe. The risks and concerns. Now, let's be clear-eyed about this. Bringing Paul Pogba back to Manchester United would be a high-risk decision, and there are legitimate concerns that cannot be ignored. The first and most obvious concern is Pogba's injury history. Over the past few years, Pogba has missed significant time due to various injuries. Muscle problems, knee issues, and recovery setbacks have limited his availability and interrupted his rhythm. After returning to Juventus in 2022, Pogba's second spell has been plagued by fitness issues. He spent more time in the treatment room than on the pitch. For a player now in his early 30s, these injury concerns aren't going to disappear. In fact, they're likely to worsen as he ages. So Manchester United will be taking on a player who may not be available consistently. And in modern football, where squad depth and availability are crucial, that's a real problem. Even if Pogba returns healthy, there's no guarantee he can maintain that fitness across a demanding season. The Premier League is physically intense. The schedule is relentless. And Pogba's body has shown its struggles to cope with that load. The second concern is the media circus that would inevitably follow. Paul Pogba is one of the most scrutinized players in world football. His every move, every performance, every social media post generates headlines. If he returns to Manchester United, that attention will intensify exponentially. Every match will be analyzed. Every mistake will be magnified. Every rumor about his happiness or contract situation will dominate the news cycle. This creates pressure not just on Pogba, but on Ruben Amorim and the entire squad. It's a distraction that a rebuilding team might not need. And if things go wrong, if Pogba gets injured again, if he underperforms, if there's conflict, the backlash will be severe. The media narrative would be brutal. Manchester United make the same mistake twice. The third concern is fan division. Talk to Manchester United supporters about Paul Pogba, and you'll get wildly different responses. Some fans remember his moments of brilliance and believe he deserves another chance under a better manager and system. Others are firmly opposed. They see Pogba as a symbol of United's failed strategy over the past decade. Expensive signings that didn't deliver, players who seemed more focused on their brand than the team, a lack of commitment when things got difficult. For these fans, Pogba's return would feel like going backward, like repeating past mistakes rather than learning from them. This division within the fan base could create a toxic atmosphere. Some supporters would back Pogba from day one. Others will be waiting for him to fail. And that's not healthy for anyone involved. The fourth concern is tactical. Yes, Amorim might have a plan for how to use Pogba. But what if it doesn't work? What if Pogba's physical decline is too advanced? What if he can't adapt to Amorim's demands? Then Manchester United are stuck with a high-profile player on their wage bill who isn't contributing. That's a resource drain and a distraction from the rebuild. The fifth concern is opportunity cost. If Manchester United bring back Paul Pogba, they're sending a message about their priorities. They're dedicating resources, wages, attention, a squad spot, to a player whose best years are likely behind him. Wouldn't those resources be better spent on younger players who fit into the long-term vision? On prospects who can grow with the team? On building for the future rather than revisiting the past? These are all valid questions, and they explain why this potential move is so controversial. For every argument in favor of Pogba's return, there's a counter-argument against it. For every reason it might work, there's a reason it might fail. This isn't a straightforward decision. It's complicated, risky, and full of potential pitfalls. Which is why, if Ruben Amorim does pursue this move, he'll need strong backing from the club, clear communication with the fans, and absolute confidence in his tactical plan. Because if this goes wrong, the consequences could be significant, not just for Pogba, but for Amorim's authority and Manchester United's entire rebuild. Why Manchester United might still do it. Despite all those risks we just discussed, there are reasons why Manchester United might still seriously consider bringing Paul Pogba back. And these reasons go beyond nostalgia or sentimentality. The first reason is financial practicality. If Pogba's situation at Juventus continues to be complicated by injuries and limited playing time, he might be available on very favorable terms. Manchester United wouldn't need to pay a transfer fee. They'd only need to negotiate wages and contract length. And given Pogba's recent fitness record, he's not in a position to demand massive wages or long-term security. This means United could potentially sign an experienced, talented midfielder at relatively low financial risk. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, they haven't committed enormous resources that could have been spent elsewhere. In the current financial landscape, where transfer fees continue to spiral and wages keep increasing, finding value in the market is increasingly difficult. Pogba represents a low-cost option to add depth and experience. The second reason is the transitional phase Manchester United find themselves in. This rebuild isn't going to happen overnight. Ruben Amorim needs time to implement his system, assess his squad, and identify which players fit his vision. During that transition, United needs stability. They need experienced players who can help maintain standards while younger talents develop. Pogba, despite his flaws, provides that experience. He's played hundreds of matches at elite level. He understands what it takes to compete at the top. He can help guide younger midfielders like Kobbie Mainoo through the challenges of playing for Manchester United. In this context, Pogba isn't being brought in as the long-term solution. He's a short-term bridge, someone who can contribute for a season or two while the foundation of Amorim's team is being built. The third reason is tactical flexibility. Even if Pogba isn't a regular starter, having him available gives Amorim more options. Against certain opponents, or in specific game situations, Pogba's qualities could be exactly what United need. In football, depth matters. Having a variety of profiles available allows managers to adapt their approach match by match. And Pogba offers a profile that Manchester United currently lack. A physically imposing midfielder with excellent technical ability and creative passing range. The fourth reason is psychological. If Ruben Amorim can successfully integrate Paul Pogba, a player who struggled under multiple previous managers, it would send a powerful message about his coaching ability and his system. It would demonstrate that Amorim can get the best out of players, even those with complicated histories. It would show he's not afraid of difficult decisions or challenging situations. For a manager trying to establish his authority at a massive club, that kind of statement can be valuable. The fifth reason, and perhaps the most important one, is belief in the system. Amorim's success at Sporting was built on the principle that the system matters more than individual players. That with the right structure, organization, and tactical clarity, players can perform beyond what anyone expected. If Amorim genuinely believes his system can unlock Paul Pogba's potential, can mitigate his weaknesses while maximizing his strengths, then why wouldn't he try? Great managers are defined by their conviction, by their willingness to trust their methods even when others doubt, by their ability to see possibilities that others miss. If bringing Pogba back is part of Amorim's vision for Manchester United, it won't be a sentimental decision. It will be a calculated gamble based on tactical reasoning and belief in his coaching philosophy. That doesn't mean it will work, but it explains why it might still happen despite all the obvious risks. Separating rumor from reality. Before we wrap up, let's be absolutely clear about something. As of right now, this story remains firmly in the realm of speculation. There has been no official announcement from Manchester United. No confirmed talks with Paul Pogba or his representatives. No public statement from Ruben Amorim about his transfer plans. What we have are reports, rumors, and discussions among journalists and analysts. These stories reflect the kind of bold thinking that might be happening behind closed doors, but they don't constitute confirmed transfer activity. It's entirely possible that Amorim has considered the idea and dismissed it, that the club's leadership has decided the risks outweigh the benefits, that Pogba himself has no interest in returning to Manchester United. It's also possible that this discussion is being deliberately leaked to gauge fan reaction, to apply pressure in other transfer negotiations, or simply because it generates clicks and attention in a slow news period. In modern football, rumors like this serve multiple purposes. Sometimes they reflect genuine interest. Sometimes they're negotiating tactics. Sometimes they're pure speculation dressed up as insider information. So we need to treat this story with appropriate skepticism while acknowledging that the discussion itself is revealing. The fact that Paul Pogba's return is even being talked about tells us something important about Manchester United's situation. It suggests the club is open to unconventional solutions, that they're willing to consider all options, even controversial ones, to address their midfield problems. Whether that leads to Pogba, actually returning remains to be seen. Manchester United are facing one of the most important summers in their recent history. Under Ruben Amorim, the club has an opportunity to establish a clear identity, implement a coherent playing style, and build a foundation for sustained success. That rebuild will require difficult decisions, calculated risks, and a willingness to think differently about what this team needs. Whether Paul Pogba becomes part of that rebuild or not, the fact that his name is being discussed highlights just how urgent Manchester United's midfield situation has become. This won't be a rebuild driven by nostalgia or big-name signings for the sake of headlines. If Amorim does his job correctly, it will be driven by structure, tactical clarity, and a ruthless focus on what actually works on the pitch. For Manchester United fans, that represents both hope and uncertainty. Hope that finally, someone has a clear plan for the club's future. Uncertainty about what that plan involves and whether it can succeed. Paul Pogba's potential return is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. It's a story that captures the complexity of modern football, where talent, timing, tactics, and team chemistry all intersect in unpredictable ways. Over the coming weeks and months, we'll learn more about Ruben Amorim's vision for Manchester United. We'll see which players stay, which leave, and who arrives. And we'll discover whether this rumor about Paul Pogba was genuine interest or simply speculation that captured our imagination for a moment. Either way, Manchester United's rebuild is the story that will define the club's next chapter. And for millions of fans around the world, that's a story worth following closely. Thank you for joining us for this special report. We'll continue to monitor the situation and bring you updates as they develop. Good night.